All right, I'd like to welcome Dr. Brian Higginson with us today. I've known Dr. Higginson for probably about 20 years on and off, and he is definitely an expert in the biomechanics ergonomics field, especially for workplace field type training. So I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself, Dr. Higginson, and then if you don't mind, let's ask a couple questions.
Yeah,
Explain
definitely.
your background and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. First off, and yeah, as far as a quick background, I guess going front to back, I was in the military for about 10 years, explosive ordnance disposal for pretty much all the 90s. Got out, decided to go to school, got my undergrad and actually decided to jump over to biomechanics for my PhD. Up until my current position, I was a university professor for about 12 years, teaching in the areas of biomechanics, biomedical engineering, musculoskeletal injuries. But more importantly, my research line started off in military load carriage, biomechanics, and ergonomics. So I worked a lot with Mystery Ranch to develop a lot of their load carriage systems, primarily on the military side. And then in my current recruited by a research lab for fighter system, where test and develop next generation tech for tier 1 special forces. So primarily visual augmentation systems and how they affect tactical shooting performance of primarily the tier 1 special forces. But probably most relevantly to this, prior to all that, I was in the Forest Service as a wildland firefighter for 4 years before I went to the military. My last year, I was actually an engine foreman for a initial attack engine crew.
Very cool. And I went off the video because we were getting some streaming difficulties, and so I was hoping that would maybe improve the quality. So we got 99% of that. And you said your undergraduate was exercise science and then biomechanics, correct?
Correct.
Very cool. All right. So let's talk about backpack design, and you are familiar with wildland firefighting. You're very familiar with backpack design. In general, how should a backpack fit? What are the key points to look for?
Well, as far as backpack fit and function, there's really two different considerations. For the side, it comes to two different things, functional and destabilizing torques. And so we want to minimize both as far as actually loading the system itself.
Okay, say that again. It broke up. You said there were two things?
Yeah, on the functional side, functional torques and destabilizing torques.
Okay.
And so the key is to minimize both.
Okay.
And so essentially to minimize both, you want to have as much of the load as close to your center of gravity as possible. For most people, that's right below. Obviously, for a load carrier, you can't actually achieve that.
It was right below the what, Brian?
Center of gravity.
Okay, got it.
Of the individual. And so to do that, we essentially want to get the load as low as possible, but also as close to the back as possible. So really the heaviest items within your load should be low and close to the back. And just give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Really good dude. This is BOD. He just happened to be sitting around. He's always in my office. So the distinction between functional and destabilizing torques is if we have a load on the back of an individual and he's walking, so normal gait, the functional torques for gait is primarily flexion extension. And so in this case, if we flex forward at the hips, that load is going to create a greater flexion torque. And so to resist that load, you have to create an extension torque that is muscle activation.
Got it.
And so the larger this load is, the more motion is required to resist that load, pulling you into flexion. Well, as we move that load farther up, that flexion torque increases, which means that the extension torque created by our muscles has to increase as well to resist it. Now, if we move that load downward, that flexion torque decreases, and so the extension torque required by our muscles to resist it decreases as well. So we can actually decrease muscle activation, discomfort, pain, etc., by decreasing the height of that load, putting it lower on it.
Got it. So,
Same
and that's
with the destabilization torque, when you're walking at the back of someone when they're walking, their hips pretty much go in a straight line. But if you look at their shoulders, they kind of move back and forth. Well, it's the same thing. If you move that load higher, as your shoulders go back and forth, it has a greater torque, so it tends to pull you more towards the sides. And so you're fighting that unwanted motion. So that's called destabilizing torque. Whereas once again, if we can drop that load farther down, that destabilizing torque decreases, and now we're not fighting that load as much.
got it. It's interesting because there are different tutorial videos, and I laughed. I had some of the students, the people in the class watch this, and it was, you know, the backpackers and hikers, and they're like, put the load higher if possible. And I'm like, well, you know, there's a difference between those that actually do this, read the research on it versus the, yeah, anyway. So I appreciate your explanation as to why, because it makes sense. How, and you answered the second question I had was when you're loading for work, like as a wildland firefighter with they're digging lines and things and they're bending over, that's going to change the torques on the body, especially if you're not near the center of gravity. So what are the common mistakes? Oh, go ahead. Do you have a quick comment?
Yeah, just on that, and that's the issue is, and that's why you hit the nail on the head. There are the low load people, there's the high load people, but it really depends on what you're doing with that load. Because, you know, just hiking where you're primarily doing sagittal plane motion, just walking, and gait is your only objective, you know, that's going to be different loads than if you're actually doing non-sagittal plane motion, such as working. So if you're on a line, you know, throwing an axe, Pulaski, whatever, now you have to take into consideration non-sagittal plane and the extra motion associated with the extremity of your arms. And now especially if you have a loaded system, now that load is actually getting in the way of your functional activity, your
Right.
desired end result. And so to get around that and make that activity more comfortable, and so you're fighting the load less, you've got to drop it down. Clear out your shoulder area so that you can actually have full functional motion, circumduction of your shoulder area. And there was actually I think wildland firefighting was really the one needed the change in that to facilitate working on the line, move the load farther down. And so to do that, they redistribute a load from really the upper back to the waist area. And this is great if you're just standing in one position, swing a Pulaski or an axe.
Yep.
But the problem is now, if you want to go back to locomotion, walking, now you have all this crap on the sides of your waist that get in the way of arm swing. Now, if you're carrying, you know, a chainsaw, an axe, something like that, where arm swing is limited, it's not really an issue. But if you have nothing in your hand, you want full arm swing, you have all the stuff that's in your way on your hip.
Right.
And so that's why companies like Mystery Ranch, they started off with that, realized the issues, and then moved everything to the back. But instead of going with just a waist belt solution and trying to attach everything to the waist belt, they actually went with a shoulder suspension system to help relieve the load, keep it off the waist, and prevent your pants from being pulled down because you have 50 pounds of stuff on your waist belt.
Exactly. Well, so the last question I have then is the fun one is, what are some of the designs that you've been involved with for functionality in the field?
One of the biggest ones I've been involved with was actually on the military side. And the reason for that is because almost without exception, every single load carrier system from an ergonomics perspective is designed to contour to the curvatures of the back. Well, that's great, but in the military, very rarely are you ever in a situation where you're wearing a low carrier system and have plate carriers. The plate carriers are totally different than the curvatures back, but no one is making right now a backpack to integrate the curvatures of the armor plate.
Got
That's
it.
why I worked quite a bit with Mission Ranch on coming up with an aftermarket load stabilization.
Oops, I think we're losing you.
Which isn't the best solution. The best solution is to actually make an intentionally built load system to conform. It's going to make an inherently unstable system more stable when it's not being run appropriately.
Got it. So I caught it. You broke up right for about 5-10 seconds there, but it was, you said that one of the issues is that normally backpacks are designed, the good ones have for the curvature of the back, but when you have armor plating, that curvature goes away. So how do you address that? And so see, and that's what's neat about it is with wildland firefighting, you're talking military, with a lot of these specialized jobs, they don't have their t-shirt and jeans on and that's it, and they're a sleeping bag and a mess kit and that's it. They have a lot more to it. And so I guess one last piece of what advice would you give wildland firefighters, with your background and with packing? Any thoughts for them to improve ergonomics?
Well, I think the big thing is I'm not going to say they have it easy nowadays, but back in the day, especially on the military side, but also wildland firefighting, it used to be a one solution fits all. And that you look in the military, you got a rucksack, but that was also your assault pack, your patrol pack, your tactical med pack. It was everything. It was just one pack for everything. Whereas nowadays, ranch are acting job specific. And so it's a matter of finding the right pack for the job. Even when I was in wildland firefighting, we had one pack. And it was just like a regular, like I told you earlier, little high school pack where everything went into it. It didn't matter if you're on the line or if you had the engine, stand at the engine all night. Everybody got the exact same pack. But being on an engine crew running a pump all night is totally different than being out on a line. And now they have specific packs for both those applications. Engine crew example, more your standard backpack where, when you're in an engine all night, pack, but it's in the truck or in a tool compartment. You're not wearing it unless you're doing a running hose line. And like literally, I would just grab mine. I knew there's a hose in it, hose clamp, throw on my back, run up the hill, lay the hose, come back, threw the pack back in the compartment. Well, you don't have that luxury on the line. You're always stuck with that. And the key is the solutions are out there. It's just a matter of going out and finding the right pack for your solution and talking to your boss into actually getting it.
All right.
But
that's probably the biggest obstacle, isn't it?
Yeah. But the one thing that, from my experience, both in ballistic helmets that I work with right now and packs, is nowadays both are incredibly adjustable for both comfort and fit and stability. The problem is end user usually doesn't know just how adjustable they are. Why? Because they throw the instructions out as soon as they get them. They throw them on, it's like, oh, this is close enough. But I was like literally at a I think, both Dallas and Houston, and I went down there and I was swapping out some fit bands for their ballistic helmets. And I saw this one guy from the back. I'm like, dude, take off your helmet. And I adjusted his nape pad just one notch down. I threw it back at him. I said, put that on. And his eyes lit up. And he goes, oh my God, what'd you do? This is the best thing ever. It's like that band was digging into my head. It's like, yeah, I could see that. But that band is adjustable. You can move it up and down. He goes, oh, I have no idea. I moved it down one notch. And it was a game changer for him. Now, asking him of people take them out of the box and throw them on, and you say, oh, well, that's close enough. or adjust it a bit for size, but don't realize just how many other adjustments are available for increasing comfort and increasing stability.
Got it.
And so it's worth that extra 30 minutes of sitting down with the instructions and actually fitting it specifically for you. I don't know, now the Nate pad example goes for packs as well. I don't know how many people I've seen that have ranch backpacks where they're adjustable, right? And they don't know that. Same thing. I could pop that off, just 2 to 4 centimeters, have put the same pack on, and to them it feels like a totally new pack.
Totally different. Cool.
Yeah.
So do your research on how to actually fit the packs properly and then do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So yeah, like I say, spend the extra time to adjust it just for you, for comfort and stability.
Very cool. All right. Well, I appreciate it. And if I have any other questions, I'll shoot those out to you. But thanks for taking the time to talk with us today. I know you're super busy, and I know you have some cool stuff. I know you're working with the SEAL teams, and it's always exciting to talk to you. So I appreciate your time.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.